Hi guys, how you doing? I hope online learning is going okay. I'm sorry if I have been overwhelming with the assignments I've been giving. I've tried to cut back this week, and next week after spring break, I will also be better. We're just trying to figure this out. I'm really grateful for people that got on and took the survey that I sent out. If you haven't yet, please go do that so I can be able to see how well you're working and how much time you've been spending, so I can get it more an accurate amount of time to get you to be able to learn. Learning is number one, but I don't want to overwhelm you. I want you, it's a hard balance to get enough content that you're learning it, but not so much that you're overwhelmed and frustrated, because that's hard to learn. Okay, so let's talk about cellular respiration. So you've done a little bit about it. You've watched that gummy bear video, which is kind of cool, and you've done some readings about it and watched some videos. So let's talk about it in detail, make sure you understand what's going on. Okay, so the whole point of this unit, the whole goal is this. You need to be able to describe how food is changed through chemical reactions to form new molecules that support growth and or release energy as matter cycles through an organism. Specifically, you should be able to describe that during cellular respiration, molecules are broken apart and rearranged into new molecules, and that this process releases energy. Okay, so what does that mean? So at first it says you need to be able to understand and describe that food, when we eat it, is changed by chemical reactions, and then that forms new molecules. And those new molecules are used in our bodies for lots of things, specifically to support growth. So like to build our bodies, to make new cells, to grow hair, and to grow taller. In your cases right now, you guys are all still growing taller. The other thing is it's also, these molecules are used to release energy. Okay, so we need energy to survive. Anything in our body, any function that happens, it needs energy in order to work or to go through what the process it needs to. So energy. So we need to grow and we need energy. So specifically what we're going to talk about is cellular respiration. And during cellular respiration, molecules are broken apart and they're rearranged, and that releases energy. So remember, we talked back in the beginning of the year during our chemistry unit, we talked about how we have atoms. They come together and they make molecules. And when atoms come together and make molecules, they're bound together by a bond, which we represent just by drawing a line, right? So think about H2O, where we have two H's and one O. Sorry, you have two H's and one O, and they're connected by lines. Those lines are bonds, okay? They're bound together. So when you break apart the two H's and the O's, there's energy that's released. So our body uses that as a tool. Okay, so let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about what is cellular respiration. Okay, so cellular respiration is basically a process that your cells go through. We have millions of cells, trillions of cells in our bodies, and each of them have functions that they have to do. Think about our heart is made up of cells. Our muscles are made up of cells. Our bones are made up of cells. Our skin is made up of cells. Our eyes are made up of cells. All of our organs are made up of cells, and all of those organs have different functions that only run because of what the cells are doing. Okay, and the cells are only able to do those things because they get energy from this process called cellular respiration. So, cellular respiration is a process that cells go through in which they take food and they turn it into usable energy that they store in what's called ATP. So, from your readings and maybe from the videos, it talks a little bit about ATP and what it is. All you need to know is that ATP is just the name of a molecule that stores energy. Okay, so we go through cellular respiration in each cell, and at the end you have to store the energy somehow. And how they do it is just in bonds of a molecule called ATP. It's a molecule that's really easy to break the bonds to be used as energy and to rebuild the bonds to store energy. Okay, so that's how the body uses and stores energy, is by bonds. It's called chemical energy, right? When we talked about that from the beginning of the year. Okay, so let's talk about the equation. What is the chemical equation of cellular respiration? Okay, so let's look at this. Last video, if you watched, we talked about photosynthesis. So I kept it on the same paper. Okay, here's photosynthesis, sorry. and cellular respiration. So I'll give you a second to just look at that and read through it. Okay, if you haven't realized this already, I want to make sure that when you're looking at this, you recognize that these two equations are exactly opposite of each other. Okay, so we have here photosynthesis. It takes an energy from the sun and it uses carbon dioxide from the air and water that it gets from the ground. And then it uses these things to have a chemical reaction, and in the end you get glucose and oxygen that's released. Okay, and cellular respiration, which happens in our cells and in any living animal cells, you have glucose and oxygen that are used together, and then you create carbon dioxide, water, and energy. This is the important part, right? The energy, which we store as ATP. So if we think about a plant goes through photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Okay, so it can do this whole cycle by itself. Okay, so it takes energy from the sun, carbon dioxide from the air, and water, and it creates glucose and oxygen. Okay, then it takes those glucose and oxygen over here and it does its own cellular respiration and creates these three things. And then it uses those three things here. So it's a continuous cycle that is able to supply its own energy just by getting energy, light from the sun. Okay, we eat the plant, so the plant's done this. It's created these two things, glucose and oxygen. We eat the plant to get the glucose, and then we breathe in the oxygen that the plant has created, and the plant has created in order to create these things, in order to mostly create energy for our bodies. Okay, these two things, the water and carbon dioxide, are just byproducts. Okay, so carbon dioxide, yeah, those are not the main point. The main point of doing cellular respiration is to get energy. All right, so another thing you need to think about is what are the reactants and products in these equations. Okay, so remember, the reactants are always on the right side. Okay, these are the reactants. So for cellular respiration, the reactants are going to be your glucose and your oxygen. They are the things that come together that react to make the chemical reaction happen. Okay, so they react together. Then here on the left side of your equation, you have the products. It's the things that are produced. Okay, products produced. Okay, so reactants, products. All right, so now that we've talked about that, let's talk about more in detail. So we know cellular respiration makes energy for our bodies, but how? How does it do that? First of all, where do we get the energy from? From food. Okay, so we need food to survive. If we don't eat food, our bodies will slowly deteriorate and then we will die because our organs will shut down because they don't have energy to run. Okay, so let's talk about what happens when we eat food. So if I have a piece of bread, okay, I eat the piece of bread, I chew it up, and that's starting the process, okay, of getting it down small enough for cellular respiration to be able to use your food. Okay, so I chew it up in my mouth. Saliva is used to also help break it down, and right away carbohydrates are already being absorbed into your body just a little bit in your mouth. Okay, most of it is not yet though. Most of the energy is still in the food. Okay, you've chewed it up, you've swallowed it, it goes down your esophagus to your stomach. When it gets to your stomach churns up that food, and there's a lot of acid in your stomach, okay, which helps to break down your food even further. Okay, so it breaks it down, churns it up, makes it smaller, and then that churned up food and that bile is pumped into your small intestines. Okay, in your small intestines, this is where the magic really happens. This is where the most nutrient absorption happens in your body. Okay, so basically what happens is when the food gets into your small intestine sends out these things called enzymes. All you need to know is they're little proteins that their function is to break down your food into small enough pieces, basically, into small enough molecules. Okay, so their goal is with that piece of bread that I ate is to break down all the carbohydrates into glucose. Okay, this glucose molecule, C6H12O6. Okay, that's its goal. It needs to break down all of that bread into this small of a molecule. Okay, so that takes time. There's millions of this molecule that makes up a slice of bread that you ate, right? So they're breaking that down by the enzymes. And then the glucose is able to be absorbed into your small intestines, which is then absorbed into your blood. Okay, so your blood is the main transit system of your whole body. Whatever you get into the blood, it can get to any cell. Okay, so you get the glucose into the blood, then that blood pumps throughout your whole body with the glucose in it, and the glucose gets to all of the cells that need it. Basically, it passes by cells. If the cell needs it, then it is absorbed out of the blood into the cell. The cell takes in the glucose and it gets it into the mitochondria, which is where it's used to break down and make energy. Okay, you also are getting oxygen. How am I getting oxygen? I breathe it in. Okay, I breathe it in. It's absorbed into my lungs. That oxygen is then transferred, diffused, absorbed into my blood. The blood does the same thing. It brings all of the things that we need to our cells. Then you have the byproducts, right, of cellular respiration. So we've got the glucose in there. We've got the oxygen. They chemically react together, okay, inside the mitochondria, inside each cell. And what happens is you basically take that glucose, which is full of atoms, and the oxygen that's full of atoms, and we break all those apart, rearrange them, and create them into new molecules. And the main thing that we get out of it is energy. Lots of energy that is now stored. We can move that energy wherever we want in the body, break it apart, and use it for functions like making sure the blood is working, making sure the blood is clean, making sure your heart is pumping, making sure your muscles are moving, okay, making sure your bone is strong and stable. So it's really important. All right, so what else we need to talk about? I also want to just mention really quickly that after cellular respiration happens, you also have two byproducts, right? Besides just energy, you also make carbon dioxide and water. What happens to those? Carbon dioxide, that's what we breathe out, right? So carbon dioxide, it is in the cell after you have cellular respiration, and it's diffused back into the blood. That blood is taken eventually back to your heart and to your lungs. And when it gets to your lungs, the carbon dioxide diffuses into your lungs, and then you exhale out carbon dioxide. Okay, so that's why the only reason why we breathe is for cellular respiration. Isn't that crazy? Is so that you can get in oxygen for cellular respiration and get out carbon dioxide for cellular respiration. The other byproduct is water, and water is just used in the body in different places, or it can be excreted out. Okay, so there you go. That's how it works. That's how cellular respiration works. I just wanted to talk for a couple more minutes about nutrition because I think it's really interesting. Okay, so our bodies, they don't just need glucose, right? We eat a whole bunch of other things that our body also needs. It's not just about glucose, okay? So carbohydrates, okay, there's 4 things that your body needs from food. Carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids. Okay, so start with the first one. Carbohydrates, that's where you're getting your glucose from, okay? So carbohydrates are found in lots of things like bread and rice and, potatoes and fruit, okay? So there's a lot of like starchy things, anything like that has a lot of carbohydrates, okay? That's where we're getting our glucose from to get energy to our cells, okay? But we also eat a lot of other things, okay? So proteins, okay? Why do we eat proteins? Why do we need proteins from like meat and beans and nuts and eggs? Those things provide us lots of protein, okay? The reason why proteins are important is because they make up the structure of the cell. So we talked about carbohydrates, they make the energy for the cell, but what is making up the cell? Proteins mostly, okay? So we need proteins to build the cells, to like make the functions inside the cells, okay? Important. It also helps with things like DNA regulation to like turn on and off certain genes. It's also used in enzymes, like we talked about, the enzymes that break down our food. And it's also used in like muscle contraction. So the reason why you're able to contract your muscle is because proteins are controlling that. Our muscles are greatly made up of proteins as well, right? So that's really important. The third thing, lipids. Okay, so we need fats. A lot of people say don't eat fat, but you actually really need fat. Okay, it's really important. A lot of our brain tissue is made up of fat. Our muscles, the membranes of our cells is made up of lipids, fats, okay? And And also, it's important to have fat stored on your body so that if you get in a situation, your body is in a situation where you don't have food for a while, it needs to have stores of food somewhere in the body so it can still go through cellular respiration. Okay? Something to think about is that you can go through cellular respirations on glucose, but you can also go through cellular respiration a slightly different way by using lipids. So if you have, that's what you're trying to do, like when you're burning fat, when you're exercising, is you're trying to get to a point where you're burning off of the extra fat that you have on your body and get that through cellular respiration so your body can use it as energy. So it's not stored fat anymore, it's used. Last thing is nucleic acids, okay? Nucleic acids are what make up our DNA. So our body has trillions of cells, but those cells are continually being recycled and our body is continually building new ones. And we need nucleic acids, which is what makes up our DNA, in order to make our new cells. Okay, so we make our new cells, our body is copying DNA and making a new strand, and that's made up of nucleic acids. Where do we get nucleic acid from? Mostly from vegetables. Okay, so if you are not eating your vegetables, your body is having a hard time making new cells and making its new DNA. You can get nucleic acids from other foods too, but it's really highly concentrated in vegetables, which is why you're told to eat several servings of vegetables a day. It's really going to help your body function well, and you're going to feel good. All right. I think that's it. I think that nutrition is super interesting. I think our bodies are amazing. It's amazing that we can run cellular respiration off of a piece of bread that we ate. And it's important to listen to our bodies. Listen to when your body is hungry. Listen to when it's full. And your body will function much better if you just listen to it and do what it's telling you to do. Please let me know if you have any questions. You can email me. We can set up a time to Zoom, whatever you need. So let me know if you have questions. Please answer now the cellular respiration recap questions. Take the quiz. You guys are doing great. Please keep it up. Thanks. Bye.